You remember the feeling, holding a controller, losing hours inside worlds that felt bigger than reality. Now imagine those same worlds trying to escape the screen, trying to become stories you could watch instead of play. Some succeeded, many failed. But all of them reveal something deeper, a strange moment when video games did not just entertain you, they tried to speak to you in an entirely different way. Number 16. Earthworm Jim, 1995. Chaos rarely translates well from video games into television. Yet this bizarre creation did something few adaptations even attempted. It embraced madness instead of hiding from it. The original game thrived on absurd humor. A worm in a supersuit, a universe that made no logical sense. The cartoon doubled down on that insanity and pushed it further into pure animated unpredictability. Instead of grounding the story, the show leaned into surreal comedy. Villains felt like they escaped from a fever dream. Scenes shifted tone without warning. One moment felt like slapstick chaos. The next felt like a parody of superhero tropes. That unpredictability became its identity. Viewers never knew what would happen next, and that made it addictive. What makes this show rare today is not just its origin, it is its refusal to follow structure. Most game adaptations of the era tried to simplify their worlds. This one exploded its own rules. It treated logic as optional. That decision made it feel ahead of its time, almost like a prototype for modern absurd animation. Yet, despite its boldness, it never reached mainstream dominance. It lived in the shadow of safer franchises. Over time, it faded into nostalgia, but those who experienced it remember something different, something wild, something that refused to behave. And that is why it survives, not as a hit, but as a strange anomaly, a cartoon that captured the spirit of a game by refusing to be normal. Number 15. Bomberman Bidaman, Bakugaiden, 1998. At first glance, it looks harmless. Bright colors, toy-like characters, a world that feels designed for children. But underneath that surface lies one of the more overlooked expansions of a gaming universe. This was not just Bomberman again. This was a complete reinvention. Instead of focusing on simple bomb mechanics, the series built an entire mythology. Characters became warriors. Battles became strategic. The tone shifted toward adventure rather than repetition. It turned a simple arcade idea into something that felt structured and layered. What makes it rare is how quietly it existed. Outside Japan, many audiences never fully experienced it. It did not receive the same push as bigger franchises. No massive global rollout, no aggressive marketing. It slipped through the cracks while louder properties dominated the era. Yet the craftsmanship stands out. The pacing feels deliberate. The world building grows with each episode. It does not rush to impress. It builds slowly. That patience gives it a unique rhythm compared to Western adaptations of the time. There is also a deeper truth hidden here. This show represents a moment when developers experimented. They asked a simple question: what if a simple mechanic could become a universe? The answer was not perfect, but it was ambitious. And ambition is what makes it worth remembering, not for what it was, but for what it tried to become. Number 14. Monster Rancher, 1999. There was a time when video games felt like gateways, not just entertainment, but escape routes into something larger. This series captured that feeling with unsettling accuracy. It did not simply adapt a game, it turned the act of playing into the story itself. A boy is pulled into the world of the game he loves. That premise sounds simple, but what follows is something far more layered. The monsters are not just companions. They carry weight, they struggle, they change. The world feels alive in a way most adaptations never achieved. What makes this series rare is its emotional core. It is not driven by action alone, it is driven by connection. Characters form bonds that feel earned. Loss carries consequences. Growth feels real. For a show built on a monster collecting game, it shows surprising restraint. There is also a quiet ambition running beneath it. The narrative explores identity. It questions control. Who owns the world, the player or the characters inside it? That tension gives the story an edge that many similar shows never reach. Despite its strength, it never dominated globally. It lived in the shadow of larger franchises. Timing played against it. But those who found it remember something different, a series that respected its audience more than expected. It did not shout for attention. It waited. And for those who stayed, it delivered something deeper than anyone anticipated. Number 13. Donkey Kong Country, 1997. It looked strange. Even at the time, it felt unusual. Early computer animation has a way of aging fast, and this series leaned fully into that risk. What it created was something awkward, something experimental, something impossible to ignore. Based on one of the most successful platform games of its era, the show chose a different path. Instead of fast-paced action, it focused on character and humor. Dialogue carried the story. Songs appeared without warning. The tone shifted between comedy and adventure with a rhythm that felt almost theatrical. What makes it rare is its boldness. It did not try to mimic the game directly. It reinterpreted it. The island became a stage. The characters became performers. That decision confused some viewers. Others found it strangely compelling. There is also a deeper layer to its legacy. This was an early attempt to push television animation into a new technological space. It did not always succeed, but it proved something important. That games could evolve beyond their original form in unexpected ways. It never became a universal hit. Its style divided audiences. Its pacing felt different. But that difference is exactly why it still stands out today. It is not remembered for perfection. It is remembered for daring to be different when most others chose safety. Number 12. Tekken, the motion picture, 1998. Some adaptations try to soften their source. This one does the opposite. It leans into conflict, into intensity, into the brutal spirit that defined the game. What emerges is not just a translation. It is a distilled version of everything that made the franchise resonate. The story centers on power and legacy. A tournament becomes more than a competition. It becomes a battlefield of identity. Each fighter carries a past that shapes every decision. The animation reflects that weight. Fights feel sharp. Impacts feel earned. Nothing feels decorative. What makes this entry rare is its focus. It does not attempt to include everything. It selects key elements and builds around them. That restraint gives it clarity. It avoids the chaos that often weakens ensemble stories. Instead, it moves with purpose. There is also a raw edge present here. The tone does not feel diluted. It respects the darker themes of the original game. Betrayal, revenge, survival. These ideas are not hidden. They drive the narrative forward. Despite that strength, it remained on the margins. It did not reach the visibility of mainstream anime. Distribution limited its reach. Many never encountered it during its original release. But those who did found something rare. A fighting game adaptation that understood tone, that respected its own intensity, and that refused to become safe. Number 11. Virtua Fighter, 1995. Precision defines this series. Not spectacle, not chaos. Precision. Every movement feels deliberate. Every confrontation carries structure. It reflects the core philosophy of the game itself. Technique over noise. The narrative follows a journey rather than a tournament alone. Characters evolve through discipline. Growth is gradual. Nothing is handed easily. That pacing creates a sense of realism rarely seen in adaptations of the time. What makes it rare is its restraint. It does not exaggerate every moment. It allows silence to exist. It allows tension to build. This measured approach separates it from louder contemporaries. It trusts the audience to stay engaged without constant escalation. There is also a philosophical layer beneath the surface. Strength is not just physical. It is mental, emotional. The series explores what it means to improve, not just to win. That distinction gives it depth. Its quiet nature may have limited its reach. It did not dominate headlines. It did not chase spectacle. But it built something more lasting, a grounded interpretation of a competitive world. Over time, that approach became its strength. While others faded, this one remained respected, not for flash, but for discipline. It stands as proof that sometimes the strongest impact comes from control rather than excess. Number 10. Battle Arena, Toshinden, 1996. Some adaptations feel like experiments. This one feels like a snapshot of ambition caught mid-motion. The original game arrived during a moment when 3D fighting was still new. The anime followed that same energy. It tried to translate a technical breakthrough into narrative form. The story focuses on fighters drawn into conflict by hidden motives. Each character carries a fragment of a larger mystery. The tone is serious, almost somber. It does not lean on humor, it leans on atmosphere. That choice gives it a distinct identity compared to louder competitors. What makes it rare is its timing. It exists in a narrow window when studios were still figuring out how to adapt modern games. There is uncertainty in its structure, but there is also curiosity. It is trying to find a language that had not been fully defined yet. The animation reflects that transitional phase. It is not polished in the way later works would become, but it carries intent. Every scene pushes towards something larger, even if it never fully arrives. Its limited format also shaped its legacy. As an OVA, it did not have time to expand its world completely. That leaves parts of the story feeling unfinished, yet that incompleteness adds to its mystique. It is not remembered as a perfect adaptation. It is remembered as a moment of transition, a glimpse into how the industry was learning to evolve alongside games. Number 9. Wing Commander Academy, 1996. Space has always been difficult to capture on television. The scale alone creates a challenge. This series approached that challenge with focus rather than excess. Instead of trying to show everything, it narrowed its lens. It centered on pilots, on training, on the human side of conflict. The story unfolds within a military academy. Characters are not yet heroes. They are learning, failing, adapting. That structure creates tension that feels grounded. Each mission carries risk, but also consequence. Growth becomes part of the narrative rather than a background element. What makes it rare is its commitment to tone. It does not chase spectacle at every moment. It builds slowly. Relationships develop over time. Rivalries feel earned. Victories feel uncertain. That measured pacing gives the series a unique identity. There is also a deeper layer beneath the surface. War is not presented as glory. It is presented as responsibility. Decisions carry weight. Mistakes have impact. That perspective adds maturity rarely seen in similar adaptations. Despite its strengths, it remained overlooked. It did not have the immediate recognition of larger franchises. Its subtle approach worked against it in a market driven by instant excitement. But over time, its value becomes clear. It is not just a space story. It is a character study set against a vast backdrop. And that focus is what keeps it relevant long after its quiet release. Number 8. Mortal Kombat, Defenders of the Realm, 1996. This was never meant to be easy. Translating a brutal game into a television format for younger audiences creates a contradiction. Violence defined the original experience. The series had to remove that identity without losing its core. What emerged is something unusual, a controlled version of chaos. The story expands beyond the tournament. It introduces a larger threat. Earthrealm is no longer a battleground for fighters alone. It becomes a world under siege. That shift allows the narrative to breathe. Characters are not just competitors. They are defenders. What makes this series rare is its balancing act. It walks a line between restriction and authenticity. The violence is reduced. But the stakes remain. The tone still carries tension. That tension becomes the driving force rather than spectacle. There is also a structural strength here. The team dynamic adds layers to the story. Each character contributes something different. Leadership, strategy, strength. That diversity gives the narrative rhythm. Despite its effort, it struggled to define its audience. Fans of the game wanted intensity. Younger viewers saw something more serious than expected. It existed between expectations, and that limited its reach. Yet it achieved something important. It proved that even the most extreme properties could evolve. They could adapt, they could survive in a different form, and in that transformation lies its legacy. Not perfect, but undeniably bold. Number 7. Darkstalkers, 1995. Darkness often loses its edge when adapted. This series demonstrates that challenge clearly. The original game embraced horror themes, creatures of the night, gothic atmosphere, a world built on tension and mystery. The cartoon chose a different path. Instead of fear, it leaned toward humor. Characters became exaggerated. The tone shifted toward light adventure. For some viewers, this felt like a betrayal. For others, it created a strange charm, a horror concept reimagined as something more accessible. What makes it rare is that contrast. It does not align perfectly with its source. It transforms it. That transformation creates a unique identity, not faithful, but distinct. There is also an underlying ambition. The creators attempted to introduce complex characters into a simplified format. Each figure retains a hint of their darker origin. Even within a lighter tone, there are glimpses of something deeper. Its short lifespan limited its impact. It never had time to fully explore its potential. That brevity contributes to its obscurity. Many viewers never encountered it. Others remember it as a curiosity. But that curiosity matters. It represents a risk, a decision to reinterpret rather than replicate. And even if it did not fully succeed, it remains a fascinating example of adaptation trying to redefine itself. Number 6. Street Fighter II V 1995. This is where the formula changes. Instead of jumping straight into spectacle, this series slows everything down. It begins with youth, with curiosity, with two fighters who are not yet legends. That decision reshapes the entire experience. Ryu and Ken are not masters here. They are searching, training, making mistakes. The journey becomes the focus rather than the destination. That shift gives the story weight. Every fight feels like a step forward instead of a final moment. What makes this adaptation rare is its patience. It builds skill gradually. It explores discipline. It shows that strength is not instant. That approach contrasts sharply with other fighting game cartoons of the era. Most relied on constant action. This one invests in growth. There is also a sense of realism in its structure. Travel plays a role. Encounters feel organic. Characters are introduced with purpose rather than convenience. The world expands naturally. That gives the series a grounded tone. Its impact was quiet but lasting. It did not dominate Western television in the same way as other adaptations, but it built a loyal following. Viewers who stayed discovered something deeper than expected. It is not just about combat. It is about becoming capable. That distinction defines its identity, and that is why it still stands apart from louder interpretations of the same franchise. Number 5. Street Fighter 1995. Where one version chose patience, this one chose intensity, fast pacing, bold characters, a tone that leans into action without hesitation. It reflects a different philosophy, one that prioritizes energy over restraint. The series pulls inspiration from multiple sources: the games, the live-action film, existing lore. It blends them into something that feels familiar, yet unpredictable. That mixture creates moments that feel exaggerated, but also memorable. What makes this entry rare is its commitment to momentum. It rarely slows down. Conflicts arrive quickly. Resolutions follow just as fast. That rhythm keeps viewers engaged, even when the narrative becomes chaotic. There is also a visual identity that stands out. Characters are stylized. Movements are dramatic. The world feels heightened, almost like a comic brought to life. That exaggeration becomes part of its charm. Its reception was divided. Some embraced its energy, others questioned its consistency. But regardless of opinion, it left an impression. It refused to be subtle. It demanded attention. Over time, it became a time capsule, a reflection of how adaptations were handled in that era. Loud, fast, unapologetic. It may not be refined, but it is unforgettable. And sometimes, that is enough to endure. Number 2. The Legend of Zelda, 1989. Before adaptation became refined, it was unpredictable. This series stands at that crossroads. It takes a legendary game and reshapes it into something lighter, more playful, more episodic. The result feels unusual when compared to the tone of the original world. The hero is not silent here. Link speaks, jokes, reacts. That single change alters everything. It shifts the tone from myth to adventure, from quiet exploration to character-driven storytelling. Some embraced it, others resisted it, but it made the series stand apart. What makes this entry rare is its contrast. The game is built on mystery. The cartoon removes that distance. It brings the characters closer. It invites the audience into a more accessible version of the world. That accessibility becomes its defining trait. There is also a sense of experimentation present. The structure feels loose. Episodes move quickly. Conflicts resolve with speed. Yet within that simplicity, there is charm, a rhythm that feels distinctly tied to its era. Its short run limited its reach. It never expanded into something larger, but its impact remained. It introduced many viewers to the world for the first time. It may not reflect the full depth of the original game, but it captures a moment when adaptation was still discovering its voice. And that makes it unforgettable. Number 1. Captain N, the Game Master, 1989. This is where everything begins. Not with perfection, not with accuracy, but with ambition. A concept that feels simple at first glance. A player pulled into a world of games, yet what unfolds is far more significant than the premise suggests. Characters from different universes collide, not as cameos, but as a shared reality. Mega Man, Simon Belmont, others reimagined in ways that feel unexpected. That creative freedom defines the series. It does not follow strict rules, it creates its own. What makes this the most important entry is its vision. It understood something early, that games could exist beyond their original boundaries. They could interact, they could merge. That idea would shape future adaptations in ways few realized at the time. There is also a raw quality to its execution. Not everything aligns perfectly. Interpretations vary, designs differ. But that inconsistency becomes part of its identity. It reflects experimentation rather than control. Its influence extends beyond its runtime. It laid groundwork. It opened doors. It proved that video game worlds could sustain narrative beyond gameplay. Over time, it became more than a series. It became a reference point, a beginning, and every adaptation that followed carries a trace of what started here. These cartoons were never meant to last forever, yet they left something behind. Fragments of creativity, risks that shaped what came next. Some were forgotten, some deserve rediscovery, but all of them prove one thing: video games were always meant to be more than games.